Alright, you start out with a gesture drawing, like I showed you, and just make it loose. Use your shoulder, you know, like your arm's a pendulum, right? You have your arm in a comfortable position, and you're just letting the momentum draw the picture. And you just do a bunch of lines, as much as you want, to create the shape that you want. And then you can start refining that shape. But see, I have all these lines to choose from, so I don't have to commit to one line and one pass. And when you have people who are doing beginning drawing, they are drawing a lot of gesture drawings, especially the animators. They're doing quick gestures just to get the movement, just to get the positioning, the composition, and then they go back and they refine those shapes. So I'm looking and I'm, making these gesture drawings, really simple shapes. Start out with your big shapes first and go from there. So I'm going to continue with this, and then I'll be making notes as I go along. So just be loose and free with it. Hold your pencil the way I showed. Hopefully you're using a real still life here. I took a picture because it's nighttime and this is the only time I could film this, so I am going by a picture of a still life I took of. So, but there's something different about actually painting and drawing from real life. And so I want you to experience that and just have fun with it. Don't forget to draw your shadows. Find out where your light source is and call out those tonal areas. Like this is a highlight, and then there's some highlights here. And I'm not being very specific right now because I'm going to be going back and refining these shapes a lot more. So I'm just calling out, like there's a dark area here, a core shadow that's called light source here. The light's coming from here and the shadows this way. There usually are a number of shadows. There's the contact shadow, where this is the really dark place underneath the apple, and then there is there's 2 or 3 shadows. There's actually another one this way. So don't forget to include the shadows before you start shading in and refining. So first it's the gesture, then it's refining these shapes and calling out the shapes. I'm sorry, gesture, calling out the shapes, and then making sure that you refine those shapes to be more accurate. And as you draw, you're going to continually be correcting your work. The whole time I'm drawing, I'm seeing and looking at what is it that I need to do to be a little more accurate in my shape. So don't forget to use the eraser. That's your best friend. Don't be afraid to use your erasers, because if you're trying to fix something, sometimes it takes a lot more time to fix it than it does just to erase it and start over. I've seen this over and over again. It just gets really frustrating trying to fix something that's not going to work. So don't be afraid to just erase and start over. And a lot of times in art, you're going to have art projects where you work months on something, and if you're in the film industry, it could be cut and put on the cutting room floor, and you can't get personal about it. You just go, okay, well, they paid me my money, so they can do what they want. If you want to attach your ego to something, do artwork at home, but if you're going to start getting paid for being an artist, you've got to be businesslike about things, and you're providing a service, which means the customer that's paying you is the one that calls all the shots. So yeah, sometimes we work really hard and we lose our work, or the computer goes down and we forgot to save, or they just edited out that piece of artwork in the movie, and you just have to take it in stride. And as long as they're paying you money, you just keep working. Alright, well, I'll meet you back here. I need to work on my reference. I think I got the wrong reference up. But anyway, I will meet you back here in a little bit. Thanks. Now, as I have basically refined my shape, I now want to make sure I call out all those places that have tonal changes. You know, there's a highlight area here, and that way I don't have to think about it when I'm shading in. There's a highlight here. There's actually a lot of interesting things here. Now, I start out doing the darker places first, and usually that's the contact shadow. Sometimes the contact shadow doesn't show if there's no light that's coming from here or here. If the light's shining directly above the object, you're gonna have a very thin line that shows up on the right underneath the object. But when you have light coming from an opposite direction, you're going to have a thicker contact shadow. So I draw that in first. You know, I close one eye and squint, and that way you can get the contrast. It really increases the contrast in your eyes, so you can see where the really dark places are and really where the light places are. And you know, in a perfect world, I would raise this up at an angle, and next time I'm going to film it at an angle, so I'm not looking at this at an angle, because my perspective is going to be off because I'm looking at it at an angle, whereas you want to line your drawing up that's very perpendicular to your eyes so that you get the accuracy. But I'll just do that the next time. So here is a really dark place. And you can use your softer pencils to do these darker areas. That mechanical pencil, I haven't used mechanical pencils in a while, but I really kind of like it. I saw a lot of YouTube videos where they were using mechanical pencil for photorealism, and it seems to work for them because they don't have to stop and sharpen the pencil, and they get a really fine line. There's different leads that you can get, softer or harder leads for mechanical pencils, so you know, you might want to consider that as you start drawing more. You know, I'm not I realize when people first start out doing something, they can't buy the most expensive things because it'd be foolish, you know. What if you took an art class and you just really hated it, and then you invested all that money in supplies that you never used again? So on my website I have basic supplies that are really economical for beginners. And if you find that you're drawing more and you really want to invest the time to do great drawings and possibly see it as a career, I'm all for getting the best supplies, because there are some really good products out there by companies that have been in business for like hundreds of years. You know, my paper that I buy for watercolor, they've been in business, I think, for 400 years, so they really know how to make paper. And the same with my oil paints. I use Old Holland, and they've been around, I think, since the 14 or 1600s, I don't know, since the Flemish art days. So, if you know you're going to be investing a lot of time, you want to be able to buy quality products, because it's going to end up saving you time and money. A lot of these cheaper, especially in paints, the cheaper paints don't have as much pigment in them, and so you're buying the binder instead, and you're going to end up using more paint to achieve the same as you would an expensive paint, very little. I've had my Old Holland paints for, it seems like, gosh, 10 years, and they're still great. Okay, the camera stopped recording, and I don't know when it did, so I'm sorry if you missed some things. So I go back and do some, I can go back with my harder pencil and do some areas that require just little striations. And then I know this is pretty dramatic here, so you can take a lighter pencil. So, see how I'm going in with this eraser and doing, you know, there's like little dots, you know, little texture dots that the apple has. And then there's this area here that's kind of a highlight. Make it smooth. Okay, let me try to make this a little more subtle. And when you see a stark contrast between a light and a dark area, take your harder pencil and kind of work that edge to where it blends a little bit more. Okay. this edge, I'm going to have to darken it to make this look, it's popping a little bit more. Now if you use the side of the pencil, sometimes you can get smoother texture. So these last touches are darkening and lightening areas, your darkest places and your lightest places. You really, I need to get much darker here. I was looking on YouTube for a video of drawing an apple, and I really couldn't find one that I liked because I have my own technique on drawing, and it really wasn't matching any of the videos I was finding. So here I am doing one. Sometimes pinching off a little bit of the kneaded eraser can allow you to erase kind of striations and lines too. With the apple there's lines. But if you have too much graphite, it doesn't work all that great. But this eraser works great. I love it. And there's some realistic paint or sketch artists, and they use an electric eraser. And I haven't tried those. I think you have to be pretty careful because paper is fragile, so you have to really watch that you don't rip the paper or damage the paper. You don't want to have an obvious line around something because that's really not natural. So my line there is going to be blended into the background, so you're not going to see it. I'm just trying to get that shape right in. This shadow is coming too far over. So this is what I said. You're going to be correcting your work the whole time, refining those shapes, refining those areas of light and dark. So don't just stick with your original gesture drawing as your final shape. That's just the starting point. Just like an animator, when he's starting to do gestures of the movements, you know, there's the cleanup artist, you know, when his job is to refine and make those lines smooth and clean up the work. So see how I'm blending this line and making the background the same tone? Because I really need to make that highlight pop because it's really bright. This is actually darker over here than the apple is.